Our story begins with our protagonist waking up, confused and questioning his surroundings. Meanwhile, in the realm of the ancient gods, powerful energy was flowing from the Lord's residence. Outside, a man named Zanshin joyfully proclaimed, "May heaven bless our Lord's family and the birth of his only heir." He informed Zanshin that the lady had given birth to a boy. Eagerly, Zanshin ordered that the child be brought to him. A few minutes later, Zanshin was happily holding his newborn grandson. Our protagonist, now reborn into the world as a baby, contemplated the strangeness around him. Zanshin gazed at him with pride and affection, calling him son. Suddenly, two luminous figures descended before them, slowly transforming into human form. An elderly man told Zanshin that after a decade of waiting, Madame had finally given birth. The other asked permission to hold the child, but both were startled by a dragon-shaped flame flickering near the baby's chest. Aside from the ancient divine body, they realized its meaning but regretted the situation. In the natural order, the influence of heaven and earth gives rise to various extraordinary phenomena, including the legendary 3,000 bodies. Among them, the ancient divine bodies were among the top 5, capable of matching emperors in battle with rigorous training. However, recent changes in the laws of heaven and earth had introduced 10 chains to curb the growth of those divine bodies. One of the men reassured Zanshin, recognizing the challenges ahead for his grandson's training. Despite these restrictions, given their esteemed status in the immortal realm, he assured Zanshin that providing a life similar to a normal emperor would not be difficult. Our protagonist is stunned, pondering whether this marks the beginning of a hero's journey that does not match his expectations. Suddenly, a system message appeared, congratulating him on acquiring the ancient divine body system. The message encouraged him to log in, warning that early logging in might come with significant risks but also promising a rare 5-star or higher reward. Being curious about the ancient divine body system, he decided to log in, intrigued by its potential. After successfully entering, the system rewarded him with an astonishing 8-star rare reward, a complete and formidable ancient divine body. Confused by this unexpected windfall, he wondered if it came from an external source beyond his comprehension. Moments later, he felt a strange sensation that paralyzed his body. The two old men, watching the scene, were startled as a brilliant light emanated from him. They anxiously questioned the unfolding spectacle. "What's going on?" The chains hindering his cultivation suddenly lit up and began to unravel, one after another. As one chain broke, the others followed suit, gradually releasing him from their grip. Zanshin watched in amazement as he broke free, releasing a powerful energy that permeated the realm. His shock deepened when he witnessed countless figures within the mist bowing respectfully to his grandson. Deeply shocked, Zanshin declared that it was a divine body phenomenon, aroused the respect of many saints, and praised his grandson's demeanor as that of a great emperor. This made him anxious, as it was probably not something Zanshin should have said. One of them expressed disbelief that the ancient divine body had broken free from its own chains. The other added that when the ancient dragon's nest had produced Long Ocean, they were filled with pride, but now they were astonished and somewhat afraid, realizing that they were praising him as almost invincible. He wondered if he should maintain a lower profile in the future. Chen suddenly realized that he hadn't even named his precious grandson yet and asked for opinions on Immortal. The old-timers find it too ordinary and cliched. Later, Zhang Ru, the child's mother, suggests naming him Suoyo, which means free and unfettered. She explained that while being immortal was achievable, living carefree was challenging, and she hoped her child would enjoy living carefree. Zanshin agreed and declared that the child would be named Zheng Shuoyao. One of the old men reassures Zanshin not to worry, saying that Zheng Wuhai might still be the white gown god king and might be stuck somewhere instead of falling. Zanshin gazes sadly at Shuoyo, who smiles innocently, expressing her hope that it is indeed true. Meanwhile, at the Jun family's ancestral cemetery, the coffin lid suddenly shifted with a loud noise, startling those gathered. They exclaimed that something was wrong, as the coffin lid could no longer hold whatever was inside. In the realm of the ancient gods, Shuoya was fast asleep in his mother's arms. Zanshin told the clan elders that once the news of Shuoyo reaching the great divine saint body spread, it would have a significant impact. They must work together to conceal the divine body fluctuations emanating from Shuoyo. One of the elders agreed, warning that many factions in Immortal City were eyeing the Jun family's newfound prominence. Another warns, a prominent tree in the forest will attract the wind. implying that Shuoyo's extraordinary status could make him a target for danger. This prompted Zanshin to realize that the old man understood the importance of caution and restraint. Zanshin instructs Ru to take the child, and Ru complies, apologizing to his father Tian and the clan elders for any inconvenience caused. The elders and Zanshin then began to recite names such as Black-Faced Lightning Lord, Black-Killing Heavenly Warrior, 4 Straight Battles, God Step Y and Gang. Suddenly a burst of bright light enveloped Shuoyo, making him feel weightless. However, an old man shouted out, demanding to know what these youngsters had foolishly done. Using his own power, the old man quickly stopped their spells and suppressed their abilities. This action shocked the elders and Zanshin. The mysterious old man's interference disrupted the world itself. Zanshin questioned the old man's identity. In response, the old man declared himself to be the 18th generation ancestor of the Jun family. Holding Shuoyo in his hands, the old man's declaration made the elders and Zanshin kneel respectfully, welcoming their honored ancestor. However, the old man's tone turned stern as he expressed his disappointment, questioning since when did the Jun family start hiding their deeds. He questioned their ability to protect a child. Shuoyo, who is confused by the presence of the other old men and finds them all looking similar, struggles to remember. Zanshin pleaded with the old ancestor not to get angry, explaining that they were worried about his grandson's safety. The old ancestor replied sternly, demanding to know who dared harm the child. He instructed them to spread the word that he would not hesitate to engage in immortal combat if anyone threatened Shuoyo. He vowed to use his mighty power to shake heaven and earth if necessary. Zanshin and the elders fell silent, understanding that immortal battles were devastating events in the immortal realm, capable of causing widespread destruction and loss of life. They were astonished that the old ancestor was willing to initiate such a conflict. With deep respect, Zanshin asked the old ancestor if he was truly prepared to risk his life to protect the child. The old ancestor simply replied, "Why not?" Despite being aware that risking one's life was an extreme measure even among top cultivators in the immortal world, involving sealing oneself inside a coffin to cut off all ties with the outside world, the old ancestor's resolve remained firm. The old ancestor explained that acquiring a great divine ancient sacred body was a rare blessing bestowed upon a divine child of the Jun family. This was considered a great fortune, which led to the decision that all of the Jun family's resources would be directed towards the child, in addition to granting him Order Zero. This revelation left Zanshin and the elders completely dumbfounded. Zanshin, confused by the term Order Zero, voiced his confusion, feeling overwhelmed by the various arrangements already in place. He asked for clarification from someone present. The Jun clan consisted of tens of thousands of members, with 10 special people entitled to receive the order given by the ancestors. By having this order, they were entitled to compete for the position of head of the family. Among the 10, there was one person who stood out as the next generation of family leaders. Zanshin learned that the last Zero Order belonged to Shuoyo's father, Chun Wui, the white-clad divine king. Expressing his concern to his ancestor, Zanshin questioned the appropriateness of this arrangement. He emphasized that each sequence holder usually faced endless trials to prove their abilities, yet Shuoyo had been born with an established zero sequence. Hence, Zanshin wondered how Shuoyo could gain acceptance from others. The old ancestor grinned and assured Zanshin that if others did not accept Shuoyo, they were free to challenge him in the future. Not caring about the opinions of others, this statement left Shuoyo dumbfounded. She protested loudly to the old ancestor that she was still a child and asked if she could just lie down. However, his words were translated into baby babble, making the old ancestor gently advise him not to cry and raise his hands. Secretly, Zanshin told Wuhai about the birth of their son. In her mind, Shuoyo begged the old ancestor to stop raising her hands and give her some clothes as she felt cold. At that moment, a system alert appeared, urging her to proceed to Taiyu Ancient Steel to enter, which made her wonder about the location of Taiyu Ancient Steel. 3 years later in the outside world, a woman exclaimed that the divine child of the Jun family, who had shot the 18th generation ancestors, was now 3 years old. She suggested contacting him to get an update on the divine child. Inside, Zanshin sat down with Shuoyo and emphasized the importance of what he had to say, urging her to listen intently. Zanshin began by explaining the path of cultivation, starting with the physical realm, which included 5 major stages. He elaborated that with the help of heavenly treasures and earthly materials, one could achieve significant progress in this realm. Next, Jianshan introduced the divine storage realm, which also consists of 5 major stages corresponding to the organs of the body: the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. Upon reaching the 5th stage of the divine storage realm, one can accumulate spiritual energy, condense the divine official, and eventually transform into a true spirit. Curious about the time frame for passing through these realms, Shoyo asked her grandfather. Jianshan told her that it usually took 5 years for ordinary people and 3 years for prodigies. However, given Shoyo's potential, Jianshan speculated that perhaps 1 or 2 years would be enough for her. Confused by this timeline, Shoyo questioned why it took so long when she felt capable of breaking through at any time. Jianshan encouraged her to demonstrate her cultivation technique, prompting Shoyo to agree. She proceeded to demonstrate her current cultivation level to her grandfather. Jianshan was amazed at how quickly his grandson entered the meditative state, impressed by his progress. However, Jianshan was truly surprised to witness Shoyo break through the 2 realms consecutively without pause. His amazement grew even more when Shoyo quickly transcended all 5 realms. Stopping her demonstration, Shoyo excitedly announced to her grandfather that she believed she had successfully broken through the divine storage realm. To her surprise, Jianshan, who was lying on the ground with a joyful expression, praised Shoyo's extraordinary talent and commented on her impressive achievement. Worried, Shoyo asked Jianshan if he was all right, and Jianshan assured her that he was fine, but was deeply moved by the moment. Excited, Jianshan then expresses his desire to commemorate Shoyo's breakthrough by giving her a gift. He asks Shoyo what she wants, although he understands that his granddaughter is still unfamiliar with their world. Remembering something important, Shoyo asks Jianshan if he knows about Taiyu ancient steel. Jianshan smiles warmly at Shoyo and says that no one knows Taiyu ancient steel better than him. He described it as a stone steel located in the remote Tankian desert, which measured a person's physical strength upon impact. The Jun family had dug it up and placed it in their martial arts arena for younger students to measure their prowess. Shoyo was intrigued by the proximity of this steel stone. Excited by the prospect, Shoyo sweetly asked her grandfather if she could visit Taiyu ancient steel now that she had broken through to the divine storage realm and could test its strength. Jianshan happily obliges, agreeing to accompany her, while Shoyo praises her grandfather, calling him the best. Meanwhile, in the martial arts arena, a woman takes the stage. She approached the steel stone, examined it closely, gathered her strength in her hands, and positioned herself. With precision, she unleashed the power of her Jianshan golden palm, delivering a powerful blow to the stone steel. After observing his hand and seeing his Jun reach 150,000, Linglong waited as the light slowly faded. His impressive accomplishment left the audience dumbfounded, prompting a man among them to ask his age. A nearby woman identified Linglong as a member of a branch family, mentioning his fame among them. The blue-haired woman addressed him as Jung Linglong, known by Linglong's Kichyo heart, and predicted he would rise to the level of sainthood in the future. Curious about Linglong's progress, the blue-haired woman questioned why his strength had only increased by 30,000 jin since the last exam. The other trainees expressed admiration at the significant increase, but a friend warned them about Lan Qingya, a follower of Jun Zhangjin who was ranked 10th, and advised against provoking him. Approaching Linglong, Lan Qingya urged him to respond, getting agitated when Linglong remained silent and turned to leave. This action further enraged Kenya, who felt slighted by Linglong's indifference. Qingya's voice echoed in anger, ordering Linglong not to ignore her. Furiously, Qingya accused Linglong of refusing an invitation from their young master Zhangjin. Linglong calmly affirmed the truth of this and explained his cautious approach in choosing masters. He acknowledged Zhangjin's strength yet criticized his lack of generosity. With a pointed question, he challenged Qingya why she had bothered to come if Zhangjin was indeed as generous as claimed. Qingya, angered by Linglong's defiance, moved to attack while hurling accusations of arrogance and threatening to teach him a lesson on Zhangjin's behalf. Before Qingya could strike, Linglong quickly caught his hand, causing Qingya to grimace in pain. Sternly, Linglong warned Qingya that he preferred not to fight unnecessarily. Suddenly, a voice interjected cheerfully, making the two women startled. Linglong and Qingya turned their heads to find a child who had appeared unexpectedly. Meanwhile, Xiaoyao received a notification from the system that she had successfully checked in at Taiyu Ancient Steel, her desired destination. While Xiaoyao placed his hand on the steel stone, the system congratulated him on receiving the 6-star reward, the Divine Elephant Suppression Prison Power. As the gifts were distributed, the system displayed the transformation process. Originally, the myriad forms of elephants technique began with an endless series of transformations. The giant elephant progresses from the juvenile stage to a dragon elephant, then back to its primitive form. Finally, the powerful elephant power culminates in the sacred elephant, reaching perfection. Reflecting on his previous gift, the complete primordial sacred body, with a rating of 8 stars, Xiaoyao speculated whether the star rating correlated with the potential of this technique and pondered the maximum achievable star rating. Suddenly, King Ye's voice broke into his reverie, demanding to know who he was and whether he knew the significance of where they were. She warned Xiaoyao that the place was not suitable for children, implying that it was a serious environment. Turning around, Xiaoyao was annoyed by King Ye's annoying voice and boldly identified himself as Zheng Xiaoyao of the Heavenly Emperor's Palace, challenging him if he had any objections. Ling Long and the audience were stunned to hear this declaration, pondering whether he was the reason behind the 18th-generation ancestor's emergence from exile and the title bestowed upon him as the Divine Son. King Ye, bewildered by the sudden turn of events and the commotion around him, looked around anxiously. Unexpectedly, someone forcefully pushed King Ye's head down, and Ling Long immediately bowed his head to the ground with deep respect, recognizing Xiaoyao as the Divine Son. He assumed that King Ye had deliberately caused trouble and quickly apologized for his earlier disrespect, begging Xiaoyao's forgiveness. The bystanders, who had initially fallen silent in shock, quickly followed suit, bowing respectfully and shouting praises to the divine child. Xiaoyao found himself puzzled by their sudden display of reverence, and disappointment crept up as he wondered why no one had questioned this sudden change. Asserting her authority, she publicly scolded them, demanding clarity on the situation. He decided to ignore her doubts, reasoning that his coming to the ancient steel was meant to test physical strength. It made no sense not to give it a try. With intense focus, he released Elephant Vadra and myriad transformations, shaping his form into a divine elephant that emitted a powerful red light. Ling Long and King Ye watched in astonished silence. When he finished, he opened his eyes and struck the steel stone. Slowly the mist dispersed, the stone trembled briefly, indicating that he had moved 10,000 jin. This amazed spectator stood in disbelief. He admired the result, realizing his incredible power even without tapping into inner spiritual energy. Once again, he had achieved something significant. However, his thoughts were interrupted by someone questioning his mere 3 years of age. Others commented on his privileged education, suggesting that it led to his greatness. Despite the recognition of his impressive abilities for a child of his age, doubts still lingered about whether he truly lived up to the title of Divine Child. He grinned inwardly, aware of their disbelief, yet understanding that it had to be this way. With determination, he unleashed his full cultivation power, commenting on the intrigue of the moment. The ground trembled under the weight of his power, causing a wave of panic among the spectators. King Ye, who was astonished by the tremendous pressure he felt, said that it even exceeded Master Zhangzhen's presence. Xiaoyao, sensing their dissatisfaction, declared that he would show his true abilities. With a hard blow, the steel stone shattered, sending shards flying. His grandfather watched from above, beaming with pride. As the dust settled, Xiaoyao stared at the shattered remains expressionlessly, while the crowd stood in amazement. However, as the reality of the stone's destruction sank in, he realized his mistake and the loss of a precious treasure. Pondering the consequences, a streak of firelight emerged from the ruins, growing stronger. This signaled the formation of the ancient extreme realm once more, offering the reward of heavenly Tao. The glowing light surged towards him, merging seamlessly into him. Jianshan's smile widened as he confirmed that it was indeed the ancient extreme realm manifesting. He explained that for centuries, no one his age had a stronger physical constitution. Proudly, Jianshan informed him that he had just ascended to the Divine Palace realm, and was now close to touching the Spirit Sea realm. They pondered together about his boundless potential, unsure of where the limits were. Intrigued by the technique she had demonstrated earlier, Jianshan questioned her origins. With tears in her eyes, she admits that it was her power that destroyed the ancient steel. Jianshan reassured her casually, claiming that the steel's destruction was of little consequence. Demonstratively, he held up a large stone fragment, challenging his grandfather's assertion that it was a precious Jun family treasure that might still be usable if repaired. Zanshin laughed out loud at his concern, playfully teasing him for his attachment to material things. Lifting her onto his shoulders, Zanshin assures her that the Jun family has many treasures and won't miss this one. With a reassuring smile, Zanshin advises them to return home together. He anticipated Zanshin explaining the spirit sea realm method, but their conversation was interrupted when someone stepped in front of them. Linglong begged them to stop for a moment, his voice barely audible amidst the overwhelming pressure. Despite feeling crushed by the weight of the moment, he knelt before them and declared himself as disciple Juan Linglong, expressing his strong desire to serve the divine child as his servant. This declaration puzzled him greatly. The audience was stunned by Linglong's bravery, and Qingye looked displeased, knowing that his own young master, Zanshin, was personally trying to recruit Linglong. He wondered if Linglong's actions were meant to disrespect Zanshin's authority. Meanwhile, Xiaoyao was silent for a moment before slowly dismounting from his grandfather's shoulder. She calmly questioned Linglong about his motives, catching him off guard. She asked why he wanted to be her servant, prompting murmurs among the crowd who recognized him as a child prodigy, born with exceptional intelligence and perception. The atmosphere became tense as Linglong struggled to articulate his reasons, feeling the weight of expectation and judgment from those around him. So, with such incredible talent and a destiny to achieve great things, why did you choose to follow me? Zanshin questioned Linglong, completely confused. Linglong replied with a question of his own, probing whether he really didn't understand or if he was testing his sincerity. His confusion was apparent, prompting his grandfather to intervene. Zanshin explained that Linglong came from a branch family with limited resources and connections. In order for him to move up in the Jun family hierarchy, forming ties with the main family was essential. Zanshin praises Linglong's acumen in recognizing Xiaoyao's potential for greatness, and attributes it to his understanding of family dynamics and the opportunities they present. Xiaoyao reflected on the privilege of her birth and the advantages it afforded her. Having better understood Linglong's motivations now, she recognizes Linglong's decision to serve her. However, she outlined her expectations clearly. She would be responsible for serving tea, pouring water, washing clothes, folding blankets, and keeping him company when he was bored. With the conditions set, Xiaoyao accepted Linglong's offer to become his servant, realizing the mutual benefits to be had. Linglong, though initially hesitant, nodded in agreement, understanding that this new role could potentially enhance his position within the Jun family. Linglong felt very confused by Xiaoyao's sudden declaration, but when she assured him that she would provide all the resources he needed if he could fulfill his duties, his confusion turned to happiness. He pledged his allegiance, declaring that he, Linglong, would stand by the divine child through thick and thin, even unto death. Xiaoyao simply replied with an "all right," then jumped onto his shoulder vigorously, urging them to return to the heavenly emperor palace. This unexpected turn of events continued to baffle Linglong, especially when Zanshin, Xiaoyao's grandfather, jokingly asked if being carried by his grandson wasn't special. Xiaoyao brushed off the comment, insisting that her grandfather should stop joking. She commented, jokingly, that compared to being carried by a muscular old man, being carried by a young woman was certainly better. Zanshin, surprised by his grandson's remark, tearfully asked what he meant. Linglong, who was still unsure of the situation, asked Xiaoyao if everything was all right. She assured him not to worry and suggested that they continue on their way, while Zanshin sulked on the ground. Linglong couldn't help but wonder if his impulsive decision to intervene would cause repercussions within the Jun family in the morning. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone was seen running quickly, with no known intentions. While running through the forest, Qingye knew that he had to reach his young master, Zanshin, as quickly as possible. Finding himself in the heart of Master Zanshin's territory, he breathed a sigh of relief and paused for a moment to regain his composure. Just as he was about to resume his journey, a sword suddenly blocked his path. A voice asked him to stop. People perched on tree branches warned him not to disturb their young master, who was in seclusion. Undaunted, Qingye immediately broke the news that Jun Xiaoyao had broken through to the ancient extreme realm and Linglong had chosen to follow him. He emphasized the importance of informing their young master immediately. One of the men with scars warned that such things should wait for their young master to return from exile. The other mocked Qingye, suggesting that he had done no better than to provoke Linglong and be rebuffed, now that he ran to their young master to complain. Qingye felt frustrated within himself. He insisted that this was not a trivial matter and begged them to consider the implications. The men exchanged skeptical glances but finally relented, agreeing to deliver the important message to Zhanjin. As they left, Qingye wondered anxiously how Zhanjin would react to the news, for he knew all too well the gravity of the situation faced by the young master and the Jun family. Qingye was enraged at the man's words. He snapped, warning the man to watch his words if he didn't want any trouble. Suddenly the forest trembled, and they felt a powerful aura fill the air. From underground, a person rose up. The man's face shone with a smile as he looked at them powerfully. Qingye happily exclaimed that it was their young master, Zhanjin, who had emerged from his place of seclusion. Rushing forward, she embraced him passionately, celebrating his return. Zhanjin asked if she had come specifically to welcome him out of exile. Qingye complained about the two people who had initially blocked him, asking if he thought they were rude. Zhanjin confirmed that their behavior was unacceptable and immediately ordered them to give 20 slaps, which they dutifully did. With a gentle smile, he asked Qingye who else had upset him, felt his distress. With tears in her eyes, she recounted her frustration with Linglong, explaining that she had started following a young man who was very arrogant. Zhanjin listened attentively, nodding thoughtfully. He assured Qingye that he understood her concerns and promised to address the situation. He praised Qingye's loyalty and assured him that they would solve this problem together. Qingye was relieved to know that he could count on Zhanjin's support, and thanked him for his understanding and guidance. Together, they were ready to face the challenges that lay ahead, united in their commitment to the honor and well-being of the Jun family. The brat's name was apparently Jun Shuoyo, and Qingye felt Shuoyo had tarnished Zhanjin's reputation. However, he simply stared at him in silence, unleashing a strike that caused a loud explosion. The two men who had slapped themselves were shocked and fell silent. Moments later, Zhanjin asked Qingye if he had shouted her name in front of Shuoyo, punishing her for her reckless behavior. She said that she was indeed spoiled. Qingye was stunned and confused by his answer. He knew that Shuoyo was the niece of the Wu clan and the favorite of the Zhang family goddess, who was highly respected by their 18th-generation ancestors. Offending her could jeopardize their position in the 10th. He realized that they had to apologize immediately. Meanwhile, in the Heavenly Emperor Palace, Zhanjin glared angrily at Shuoyo, who was avoiding his grandfather's gaze. Zhanjin remarked sarcastically that their Shuoyo has grown into a charmer at a young age, and now that he has a woman by his side, he no longer needs his grandfather. Shuoyo sweetly assured her grandfather of her affection and expressed her devotion, calling herself his dear little treasure. Zhanjin pushed her away, urging her to stop dodging questions and demanding to know the technique she used on the ancient monument that day. He hesitated for a moment before reluctantly admitting that it was called Divine Elephant Imprisoning Kai, a technique he discovered by chance. His grandfather expressed surprise, stating that he had never heard of such a technique before. Shuoyo explained further, describing it as a powerful ability that allowed him to transform into an ancient holy elephant, summon the gates of hell, and command demons to fight on his behalf. Zhanjin was shocked by the incredible power of this technique and raised concerns about potential demonic possession. Shuoyo assured him that there should not be any risk involved. Zhanjin acknowledged his efforts, emphasizing the importance of perseverance. He promised a grand feast when Shuoyo was 10 years old, where all the influential forces, ancient families, and supreme clans in the heavenly immortal realm would gather. It would be an important occasion when they would publicly reveal Shuoyo's identity as Order Zero to the entire immortal realm. Zhanjin nodded in agreement, urging Shuoyo to continue his practice in earnest. He emphasized the importance of mastering such powerful techniques to uphold their family's honor and legacy in the realm. The prospect made her swallow nervously, feeling the weight of the expectation. Just then, a system notification popped up, congratulating him on triggering a new check-in location and asking him to attend the 10th birthday party. This left him confused, wondering if he would have to wait 7 years for the next event. Isn't that too long a period of time? And what exactly determines the schedule for these check-ins? Suddenly, Linglong appeared behind her and informed her that the Zhanjin from the Heavenly Emperor Palace requested to meet outside. Surprised, she asked him how he could sneak up on her like that. but he reminded her that he had encouraged her to treat the place like her own home and relax. Laughing, she said that she must have taken the invitation seriously. Putting that aside, she asked about who wanted to meet her and who this Janjin was. He explained that Jun Jinjane was the young master followed by Lan Qingye, regarding him like a clan brother. This revelation piqued her interest as she pondered the importance of meeting someone connected to her own lineage. He asked again, asking Linglong who Lan Qingye was. He described her as a girl with a very loud voice, which triggered his memory of the Qingye. With a wry smile, he admitted that he knew exactly who she meant. Turning his attention back to the matter at hand, he questioned why this clan brother suddenly wanted to see him. Linglong hesitated, respectfully stating that he dared not speculate. Accepting his answer, she ordered him to lead the way to meet with this clan brother. Moments later, his surprise turned to horror when he encountered someone bound by vines. Jun Zhenjin explained that he had heard one of his followers had behaved disrespectfully and offended someone whom he considered a brother. Hence, he had brought him here to apologize and show humility, hoping to be forgiven. This angered him. She saw Zhenjin's ploy to assert dominance at her expense. She seethed, wondering what Zhenjin meant by presenting this apology as a sign of humility. He realized that Zhenjin was trying to make a power play. Before long, they were seated inside, ready to face the situation head-on. He apologized for his brother's sudden arrival, offering only simple tea and hoping to be forgiven. Zhenjin graciously accepted, claiming that his sudden arrival was his fault. However, Zhenjin hid his anger. He noticed how Linglong was treated as a servant, pouring tea and being called a brat. While staring at his tea, he asked Zhang Zhenjin if he intended to let Qingye kneel there. Zhang Zhenjin replied that if forgiveness was granted, Qingye wouldn't have to keep kneeling. Xiaoyao scoffs and slams her teacup back on the table. She explains that she does not hold grudges. If someone offends her, she will retaliate immediately, and there is no need to apologize sincerely. Linglong stifled a laugh, cleared his throat, and excused himself from the room, urging them to continue their conversation. This made Zhenjin even more upset. He pointed out that it seemed that his clan brothers were not satisfied with the apology, so there was no reason to defend Qingye any longer. He quickly attacked Qingye from behind with his sword, causing a loud crash that shook the kingdom. Fortunately, Linglong managed to pull Qingye out of danger in time. He criticized the rude and reckless act, questioning whether this was the dreaded Jun Zhenjin he had been warned about. Qingye remained silent, but Zhenjin heard and became angry. Xiaoyao confronted Zhenjin, reprimanding him for his hasty aggression within the Celestial Emperor's palace. She questioned whether Zhenjin was deliberately trying to provoke her. Zhenjin, who felt intimidated, claimed that it was a misunderstanding. He reminded Xiaoyao that he was the divine child of the Jun family, and asserted that he would never dare to offend her. Xiaoyao pressured Zhang Zhenjin further, expressing her doubts and metaphorically overturning the table, indicating that she did not fully trust him. Zhenjin was surprised by Xiaoyao's boldness, but was furious that Xiaoyao had intruded on his territory and attempted to discipline his subordinates. He even threatened to kill someone in her presence, all the while thinking of who he would intimidate. Xiaoyao pondered whether his youthful appearance could inspire fear, recognizing that under different circumstances, his young age might be intimidating. Zhenjin had been dealing with the wrong person. After being knocked aside by the attack, he was stunned, questioning whether it was really the strength of a 3-year-old. He rose to his feet and asked Zhenjin for reassurance that he was not fooled. Dawn affirmed that he could defend himself if necessary and did not need anyone's help. Then, in a joking tone, he commented on the pleasant weather and suggested a sparring match to strengthen their brotherly bond, daring Zhenjin to back down. Zhenjin was furious, but he told himself to stay calm and not be provoked by a 3-year-old. With his anger under control, he agreed to spar, admitting that since his kinsman wanted him, he would oblige. However, he mentioned that due to his seniority, he would only use 30% of his strength. Zhenjin proposed a deal. If Xiaoyao could defeat him, he would hand over the Yuanshan supreme command. However, if Xiaoyao failed, he would have to apologize for his arrogance. She was confused about what the Yuanshan supreme command was, but then she heard Linglong's voice in her mind, assuring her that it was very valuable because Zhenjin himself had offered it. Linglong urged her not to be shy and defeat Zhenjin to get the token, hinting that it could be connected to the legendary Great Secret Treasure. Out of curiosity, she asked for more details, and Linglong explained that great refers to those who stand at the peak of the ancient immortal realm, immortal and invincible. He encouraged her to imagine the wealth and power contained within the treasures left behind by such a great being. Smiling, she acknowledged his insight and then graciously thanked Jianjin for his generosity, much to the surprise and fear of Jianjin, who was beginning to suspect that the divine child of the Jun family might just be a greedy opportunist. A few minutes later, Jianjin was still trying to make sense of the situation. As the highly respected 10th order of the Jun family and a universally recognized genius, he was at a loss as to why he was being challenged and pressured by a 3-year-old child. He found Xiaoyao's erratic movements disgusting. However, Xiaoyao was enthusiastic, urging Jianjin to defend, which infuriated Jianjin to the point of wanting to punch Xiaoyao. The audience began to gather, realizing that T-Sequence Jianjin and Divine Child Xiaoyao were arguing. One bystander shouted that it was unfair for a 3-year-old to get involved, calling it bullying. However, another bystander pointed out that so far, it was Jianjin who was on the defensive. Jianjin took a deep breath, realizing that he could not let Xiaoyao dictate the pace. He decided to bring out all his strength, recognizing that Xiaoyao, who was chosen as the divine child by their 18th ancestor, must have extraordinary abilities. He admitted to himself that he had been too arrogant and should take this match more seriously. The audience was stunned when Jianjin activated the Emperor Z sword technique. They questioned whether it was really necessary to use such a powerful technique against a 3-year-old, and some thought that Jianjin Jan was incapable of accepting defeat gracefully. Hearing these comments, Jianjin became angry and thought that they had no idea how strange the child was. He warned Xiaoyao to be careful not to get hurt, then lunged at Xiaoyao with his sword. Linglong, who observed the scene, realized that the Emperor Z sword technique was a high-level skill even among the Jun family's main bloodline. The 9 sword auras of this technique formed a net, blocking all exits, signaling that Jianjin intended to seriously end the fight. However, he remained unconcerned. Xiaoyao greeted Jianjin's attack with a simple gesture, raising his hand to parry. She patted Jianjin's hand lightly, causing Jinjian to drop his sword. Panicked, Jianjin stared in horror at his empty hand. Xiaoyao said that he had always thought that his clan brothers were weaker than expected. Then, with a swift kick to Jianjin's face, a loud explosion sounded, and teeth flew into the air. Jianjin watched his teeth float by, confused, wondering if they were really his teeth and why they were flying into space. He passed out, dazed and confused by what had just happened. Xiaoyao snatched the supreme token from him and declared that he would take it. Suddenly, the system detected the key item and informed Xiaoyao of the new check-in location, Supreme's Yuanshan secret cage. Happily, Xiaoyao commented on this unexpected good fortune. Meanwhile, Linglong pointed out to Qingye that the man on the ground was Jianjin, the man she had often mentioned. He criticized his ability and character, suggesting that Qingye should not be fooled by someone like him. Qingye pulled her hand back, shouting that she had had enough and did not need Linglong's mercy. Turning to leave, Qingye angrily called out the names of Jun Jianjin, Jun Linglong, and Jun Xiaoyao. Before leaving, she tearfully vowed to make everyone surnamed Jun pay the price. Linglong frowned, puzzled by her anger, and commented sarcastically that Qingye definitely knew how to talk, which was most likely the cause of why people disliked her. He asked if she was just telling the truth, but she replied in frustration that if she was beaten up outside, she didn't need to come to him for help, because she didn't want to deal with it. This left her even more confused. The season passed in a noisy and bustling manner. Fall leaves fell, winter arrived, and spring flowers bloomed. Unbeknownst to them, 7 years had passed. One day, a little girl exclaimed happily that they had finally arrived. The streets were filled with people walking and chatting. The little girl and her sister, filled with excitement, asked if this was the Jun clan's divine island. Admiring her liveliness and looking forward to meeting the adorable little children within the kingdom, an announcement was made. The heavenly extreme Tao sect had arrived. He presented 9 volumes of Tao scriptures as a gift to the divine child. In addition, Tao and Pure Land presented a bottle of spirit jade marrow and 100 pieces of high-quality jade to the divine child. The daughter of the great merchant dynasty was also present, presenting an extremely precious treasure, a map of the mystic mountains and rivers. Meanwhile, 2 men climbed the stairs, each carefully carrying an item. One warned the other to be careful with the formal attire they had brought for the divine child's 10th birthday party, emphasizing the importance of not ruining it. His friend, beaming with excitement, commented on the large number of noble families and clans that had gathered to celebrate the milestone birthday of the divine child, noting the splendor of the event. When asked why she was so happy since the celebration was not for her, her friend replied that she was only sharing in the glory, adding that their divine child had shown remarkable talent from a young age. With this retreat, he might even be able to break through to the true spirit realm. Before long, the two people arrived at their destination. One of them respectfully greeted the divine child when he came out of seclusion, instructing him on how to bathe and change clothes for the banquet. However, when Shoyo did not respond, the man opened his eyes in confusion. He was surprised to see a slashed floor and a message scribbled on the wall. "I'm bored. Don't want to play?" Panic ensued when they realized that the divine child had come out of his place of seclusion. They screamed in panic and spread the news. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, Shoyo was munching on an apple. In frustration, he complained that for 3 years he had survived on fasting pills. Angrily, she questioned the purpose of cultivation if it meant he couldn't even enjoy food. Sobbing, he vowed not to recognize Jun's surname if they forced him into seclusion again. Ling Long, who was standing behind her, thought that her most hated food was fasting pills. He mentioned that, in his opinion, not being able to bathe for 10 days to half a month during exile would be even worse. Sioyo exclaimed in agreement, and then demanded to know why he was there. Ling Long replied that he was acting on family orders and was tasked with retrieving a certain divine child who had come out of his place of seclusion without permission. She gave him a fake smile, looked back, and quickly skipped away, shouting goodbye. Ling Long followed after her, reminding her that it took half a day to put on the ceremonial robes, and she would be late if she didn't return now. But he kept running, telling her to forget the formalities. Without the heavy and cumbersome ceremonial robes, he'd assured her that he would be back on time and urged her to relax. Suddenly, she heard someone shouting for help. Confused, he stopped on the roof of a nearby house and saw a crowd of people gathered below. A little girl angrily confronted a man, calling him an ugly monster and demanding why he was shouting. She accused the man of hurting her bird, Little Gray, while showing him her injured leg. The man replied that he had already apologized. But the girl, unfazed, asks what good is an apology when Little Gray's claw is broken. The other man, panicked, tries to calm the girl down and suggests that they settle the matter amicably. He had asked what kind of compensation she needed to free her young friend. The little girl became increasingly angry, asking the man who was concerned about compensation and whether he thought he was a lowly swindler. He shouted that since he broke the little one's leg, he would break his own leg to be fair. Terrified, the man begged for mercy. Shoyo, who was observing from above, wondered where this brat came from and how he dared to bully people in the Jun family territory. She realized that based on her aura, the little girl was also a cultivator. Deciding to teach her a lesson, he threw a hidden weapon, an apple seed, at her. Just before it hit, she sensed it and quickly turned around, catching it in midair. "Who dares to attack me in secret?" he challenged. Realizing that it was wet and sticky, he immediately threw it away in disgust, shouting, "Everything is wet and disgusting." Sioyo laughed loudly, telling him, "You're right. That's what you get for bullying ordinary people." She glared at him angrily, demanding to know where this ugly monster came from and how dare he meddle in her affairs. She asked if he knew who she was. Calmly, he replied that whoever labeled others as ugly monsters was the real ugly monster, making him the real monster in this situation. Enraged, she yelled in frustration. In a burst of anger, she leaped towards him, launching an attack. Observing his speed, she noted his speed but easily dodged him, mockingly saying that she had missed. Jumping back to create some distance between them, she understood his attack was not meant to hurt, realizing that he probably just wanted to vent his anger. Furious, she demanded he stop running and faced him for 300 rounds of fighting, hurling insults like rat and ugly monster at him. She laughed teasingly, saying that if she couldn't catch him, there was no point in fighting. Challenging him to prove his worth by catching her, she mischievously referred to him as an ugly little monster. Angrily, she chased after him, threatening to kill him, but he kept running while laughing, intending to herd her away to avoid further escalating the situation. Meanwhile, Ling Long stood silently on a nearby rooftop, observing them. recognizing the crest on the little girl's clothes as belonging to the Jiang family in Qingzhou. He remembered there was a young lady from the Zheng family who was the same age as her. Linglong pondered whether the little girl might be that young lady, which could complicate matters. Choosing to watch the ongoing drama, Linglong felt curious. On the other side, Shuoyo and the little girl arrived at the riverbank. The moment he realized this, he stopped his escape. The girl asked him to stop there, proving that he could keep up with her proof that he was no ordinary child. Despite being tired and sweaty, he insisted that until he gave her a proper beating today, she, Luoli, must not think that he would let her. She sighed heavily, regretting that her attempt to help had turned into a big problem. Pondering how to handle it, a firework suddenly exploded in the sky, attracting their attention. Realizing that his 10th birthday party had begun, he apologized to Luoli, explaining that he was pressed for time and could not play any longer. Luoli looks confused, but he raises his hand, bringing out a bright light that distracts her as she slips away unnoticed. As night fell on the Jade Emperor's palace, the host announced the arrival of the Jiang family from Qingzhou. They presented a series of lavish gifts, an ancient holy weapon, 3 immortal elixirs, 100 top-grade holy pills, and 1,000 grains of premium divine essence. The nobles were astonished by the generosity, recognizing the long-standing relationship between the Jiang and Zhen families for generations. The Jiang family was revered as the maternal lineage of the Zhen family's divine child. Just then, someone entered the room, interrupting the proceedings. The sight of the beautiful woman in white made the nobles speculate that she was Jiang Shengyi, the divine child of the Jiang family, known for her predestined Dao constitution. Beside her stood a little girl, identified as the jewel of the Jiang family, Jiang Luoli, who possessed the spiritual constitution of the Dao. A nobleman observed that Luoli seemed somewhat dissatisfied. Others commented that it might be due to Luoli's engagement to the Zhen family's divine child. He pointed out that children often feel uncomfortable in such situations. He commented on the modern youth's pursuit of romantic freedom. Shenki spoke to Luoli, asking if she was having a hard time, and teasingly suggesting they see if Luoli would dare to run away again. Luoli replied angrily that if she caught the ugly creature again, she would hit her hard. Before hanging her on a tree in her bird Gray voiced doubts about her ability to win. Her brother reminds her that if not for the well-intentioned young hero, she might not have made it safely to the Zhen family's 10th birthday celebration. She expressed her frustration, questioning why her brother was against her. Suddenly a voice called out cheerfully to Luoli, saying how long it had been since they last met and asking how she was doing. Luoli apologized to the person, admitting that she didn't recognize him. The person panicked, asking if she had forgotten her, and reminding her of their time in Luoyu's secret world. Realizing who he was, Luoli admitted her identity as an ancient Yi from the Yixingyan family, though she only greeted him in passing. Shengji quietly rebuked Luoli for her rudeness, prompting Luoli to explain that her visual impairment made it difficult for her to remember familiar faces. Nearby, an old man chuckled, asking Yi Xingyan if he was all right after being ignored by Luoli. Yi Xingyan shyly replied that he found being ignored by Luoli quite impressive. The old man let out a satisfied sigh, stating that as long as Yi Xingyan was happy, it was fine. After everyone was seated, Janshin walked towards the stage and realized that almost everyone had arrived to attend the event. Janshin expressed his gratitude to everyone who had traveled so far to attend his grandson's 10th birthday celebration. As he walked towards the stage, he heard people discussing rumors about the divine child of the Zhen family, noting how Shuoyo had beaten the 10th order at the age of 3. Speculation buzzed about Shuoyo's current prowess, with suggestions that he might have reached the true spirit realm. Janshin smiled proudly as he surveyed the eager young participants, including 10th place Xianjin, 7th place Zheng Xuiwang, 5th order Zhen Wanzhou, and ancient He family member Xingyan, who made an effort to sit near Luoli. Also present were the Jiang family from Qingzhou, Jiang Shengyi and Jiang Luoli. Amidst the lively chatter, questions arose about the whereabouts of the divine child of the Zhen family and why he had not arrived yet. Janshin smiled nervously, unsure of what to say and unaware of his grandson's location, realizing that he needed to buy some time. Suddenly a bright light appeared behind Janshin, and Xiaoyo appeared laughing, affectionately calling his grandfather Grandpa and reassuring him not to worry. This unexpected appearance surprised the audience, who jokingly questioned whether the main character always came last. Janshin looked back in surprise to see his grandson perched on the broken table. Sioyo introduced himself and thanked everyone for attending his 10th birthday celebration. Janshin, whispering angrily, scolded Sioyo for being late to an important event and demanded to know what he was thinking. Sioyo realizes that her grandfather is really upset this time and is determined to make amends later. Meanwhile, Luoli saw Sioyo and recognized her hairstyle and clothes from their previous encounter. Angrily, he called out to her, encouraging Sioyo to immediately think of a way to defuse the situation. He praised her as a beautiful young woman and innocently asked if they had met before. Luoli observed him in silence, noticing his neat appearance despite his sweat. However, upon closer inspection, she felt he was less attractive than she remembered. Wondering how someone with such a cute face could be unattractive up close, she concluded that she must have mistaken him for someone else, while thinking whether Sioyo could also be a skilled expert. This made Luoli ponder Sioyo's potential abilities, recalling her previous and now her appearance at the celebration. Shinhai noticed Luoli's old habits resurfacing. She always acted like that when she found something funny. Janshin, sensing something was wrong, slapped Sioyo on the back and whispered that she hadn't done anything too bad. Surprised, Sioyo asked what he meant, but Janshin only insisted that they should introduce themselves properly even though they had met before. Janshin then revealed to Sioyo that Luoli was not only the pride of the Jang family but also his fiancée, slightly older than him despite her petite stature. Sioyo looks puzzled by this revelation, as does Luoli, who is surprised and somewhat confused. However, Xingyan was the most surprised, loudly questioning what was going on and expressing his panic at this unexpected turn of events. As a divine child, Sioyo could not avoid an arranged marriage, but he considered whether he could block Luoli's interest in him. He decided to confess that he was the one who had played her that afternoon, hoping that it would deter her feelings. As she prepared to confess, Luoli quickly took something out of her clothes and placed a round, shiny object in her hand. Confused, he asked what it was, and Luoli sweetly replied that it was a potion made from Fountain of Youth water. He urged her to consume it immediately, promising that it would preserve her youthful appearance so that she could stay cute forever. Despite knowing that the potion was unlikely to work, Sioyo pulled herself together and continued to ponder her situation. She realized that she needed a way out of the engagement and looked back, recognizing Linglong as the solution. Signaling for Linglong to come forward, she boldly claimed that they had promised each other and asked him to name his terms. Linglong was taken aback by the proposal, feeling he was being miserly as a divine child. He signaled his refusal, showing that he still valued her life. Sioyo reminded him sternly that he was her servant, duty-bound to obey her orders. She chose to back down and apologize, which irritated him. He understood that she was just enjoying the spectacle and ordered her to tone down her smile. The audience commented on their compatibility, praising them as an intelligent man and a beautiful woman who seemed destined for each other. He smiled at the compliments, but inwardly wondered if any of them realized that he was still a 10-year-old child, and hoped that someone would interrupt this development. Suddenly, a loud slam on the table attracted attention. Xingyan voiced his disapproval of the marriage, bringing tears to Sioyo's eyes. The old man accompanying Xingyan warned him not to joke, but Xingyan insisted that he was serious. Zanshin reacts angrily, questioning when the Yi family will stop meddling in the Jun family's affairs. However, Qiao intervened, stopping his grandfather and approaching Xingyan respectfully. Sioyo gestured politely and asked Xingyan's name. Xingyan introduced himself as Xingyan. Sioyo grinned and suggested to Xingyan that according to ancient customs, resolving matters like this often required a show of force. Surprised, Xingyan asked if the Jun family's divine son intended to challenge him. Sioyo nodded emphatically. Outside the palace, the nobles were astonished as the Jun family's divine son and the Yi family's young master prepared to duel. They anticipated an entertaining spectacle. Meanwhile, someone approached So Wong, mentioning that they heard he had emerged from seclusion specifically to attend Sioyo's 10th anniversary celebration. He admitted his curiosity, recalling that Sioyo had defeated Janjin at the age of 3. Janjin seethed with annoyance, more puzzled by Wanjiu's presence at such an event than Sioyo's involvement. In the courtyard near the ballroom, Fu, Xingyan's uncle, counseled them to ensure the confrontation remained under control. Fu received assurances from Xingyan that he understood the need for restraint. Xingyun then came forward with his star finger attack aimed at Shuoyo to demand his confession. The audience noted that the prowess of the Star clan was apparent, curious to see how the divine son of the Jun family would respond. However, Shuoyo calmly raised his hand and easily parried Xingyun's attack. Undaunted, Xingyun continued with successive attacks from different angles, but each time, Shuoyo skillfully dodged them. As the exchange of attacks continued, Shuoyo looked a little uncomfortable, struggling to keep his balance after each dodge. Xingyun, who was astonished that Shuoyo managed to dodge all of his attacks, became increasingly frustrated. To the spectators, it seemed that Shuoyo barely managed to parry Xingyun's attacks, unaware that Xingyun was unable to land a single punch. Glancing at Luoli, watching from the sidelines, Xingyun gritted his teeth, determined not to lose in front of her. Channeling his strength, he unleashed his real star body technique, which impressed the crowd. However, Shuoyo privately recognized that the situation was becoming precarious. Xingyun gathered his star cloning power in his hand, challenging Shuoyo to see how he could avoid this attack. Shuoyo reacted with shock, realizing how dangerous this situation was. Knowing that he could not continue to dodge, Shuoyo activated his own power and countered with the Elephant Conquest Fist. Shenki exclaimed at the sight of that golden aura, recognizing it as an ancient sacred body. The audience murmured in awe, recalling how Shuoyo had triggered a vision of the All Saints sect a decade ago. However, doubts arose about the rumor that the ancient holy body had become obsolete. Someone speculated that despite the Jun family's efforts to support the Shuoyo, the path of the ancient sacred body was fraught with challenges. When Xingyun and Shuoyo's powers collided, Shuoyo found himself thrown into the air, which left him dazed and shocked Zanshin and the audience. He fell heavily to the ground, creating a moment of silence among those present. Ling Long observed with furrowed brows, trying to make sense of the unfolding events. As blood dripped from his mouth, Fu panicked and rushed towards Xiaotao, berating Xingyun for attacking a 10-year-old child. Xingyun defended himself, claiming that Shuoyo had winked at him, which confused him. Shuoyo slowly drew on his strength and deliberately threw himself to the side, revealing to Xingyun that it was all intentional. Coughing, Shuoyo grabbed Fu's clothes and urged him not to be too hard on Xingyun, emphasizing that it was the competition they agreed on and Xingyun's cultivation prowess that led to his defeat. Shuoyo admitted that the ancient saint's body was indeed limited, and his abilities were not extraordinary, suggesting it was best to end his engagement with Luoli to avoid hindering his future. Her grandfather's anger flared up, forcing Shuoyo to wait. Luoli, who was furious, learned of her grandfather's motives, feeling her grandfather was trying to push her away. However, he called her as a brother, assuring her that despite her limitations, he would never leave her. He was shocked and sternly told Luoli that, being older than her, she should not call him big brother or approach him intimately. Meanwhile, a teacup broke, leading Wanjiao to disparagingly comment on the privileged education for those born into wealthy families. Jianjin retorted that they were all born into privilege, unlike them who had to work hard for everything they had. Suddenly a voice was heard, questioning the phenomenon and whether it was related to the ancient sacred body. All eyes were drawn to the golden light emanating from the roof of the palace. A horned man and the two beasts beside him angrily berated the situation, questioning how someone who couldn't defeat ordinary fireflies was worthy of being called the holy body of mankind. This left Shuoyo confused, while Shanshan recognized them as members of the dragon clan. The man then called out to Qingya, who was with them, and kicked him. He questioned whether Qingya was joking. The man's anger flared when he confronted Qingya, stating that he had come specifically after hearing his claim that there was an ancient sacred body that had broken its restraints months earlier in an ancient dragon sanctuary. The visitors raised a toast, praising their prince, Long, for having successfully merged with the dragon essence. They proudly declared that had the dragon essence been an ordinary substance, their bodies would have exploded from its power, underscoring the extraordinary nature of Prince Long's achievement. The ancient dragon prince, Long Hoshan, opposed their celebration, questioning the importance of one dragon essence when his elder brother had combined and perfected 3 dragon essences. He expressed his determination to follow in his brother's footsteps and earn the fervent hopes of his people for his future success. The giant asked the chicken man about the dragon essence, and the chicken explained that it was the remaining flesh and blood left behind by the fallen supreme dragon. It contained various talents, divine abilities, and rune imprints, making it a highly coveted treasure in the world. The giant expressed his excitement, finding the concept of dragon essence fascinating, and asked if they could utilize its power. However, the chicken man solemnly replied that even a single drop of dragon essence would cause them to explode and perish. One woman commented that celebrating the fusion of a single dragon essence seemed trivial compared to the neighboring Jun family, who had produced a divine child worshipped by 10,000 saints. This comment angered one of the men, who demanded to know the identity of the speaker. Moments later, Kingya was forcefully thrown to the ground. A woman confronted him, questioning how a mere mortal dared to behave arrogantly in an ancient dragon sanctuary. The man who had subdued the Kingya jokingly suggested cooking it for their comrades to enjoy with their drinks. But Long intervened, ordering them not to harm him. He then questioned Kingya about what he had mentioned about Jun's family. Kingya raised his head confidently, realizing that the ancient dragon sanctuary had issues with the Jun family, and believing that his decision to come there was right. He explained to Long that Shuoyo had sent sword-given invitations to all the great families in the vast celestial realm for his 10th birthday party. Long listened attentively, but his followers burst out laughing, dismissing the sword-gifted invitation as something that might have been valuable thousands of years ago, but was now considered useless. They mocked the audacity of Shuoyo using it to invite prestigious families from across the kingdom. Long silenced his people and returned to the Kingya, intrigued by how such a seemingly obsolete object could attract the Jun family. The Kingya elaborated, explaining that the ancient sacred body was considered useless because it was held back by the Tao of Heaven. Kingya, clutching his injured chest, confronts Long at the palace, calling him a poor dragon brat. As he stumbled, Ling Long caught him just in time. Nearby, Xiuyo spoke to Long, accusing him of attacking a Jun family disciple in their territory. Long dismissed the accusation lightly, asserting Kingya's status as his slave to justify his actions, which angered her further. Defiantly, he declared himself a slave of the young dragon master, shocking Ling Long. Meanwhile, Janjin, who witnessed the commotion, was dismayed by the disturbing presence of Kingya from the ancient dragon sanctuary at the Jun family's great banquet. Aware of the insult to his family's honor, he anticipated the repercussions. Xiuyo, intrigued by the Kingya's unusual status, questions her choice to become the slave of a young dragon instead of a noblewoman, suggesting that she is chasing fortune. Tensions rise as Long's comrades move to attack, angry at feeling insulted by their master. Amidst the chaos, Janjin and Zhuang intervene, asserting the Jun family's authority against Long's provocations. Xingyu, who was in charge of the Kingya invitation, attempted to defuse the escalating conflict. In the end, the unexpected intervention of Xiuyo diffused the confrontation, demonstrating his overwhelming power and authority. Long, humiliated and injured, retreated as Xiuyo confronted him directly. This incident underscores the simmering tensions between the Jun family and the Dragon clan, with implications for future confrontations. In a strange turn of events, a polite young lady chooses not to become a noble, but instead serves a young dragon. Seeing this, he thought that she must be driven by a desire to pursue fortune. Ling Long and Kingya, who were bewildered, looked at him in confusion. Clearing his throat, he ordered Ling Long to escort Kingya away, a moment that made her feel awkward and embarrassed. During her speech at the gathering, she recounted her grandfather's words about the long-standing enmity between their family, the Jun clan, and the Dragon clan, which was exacerbated by her father's infamous actions against the Dragon Lord. This history, she noted with disinterest to Long, marked their families as mortal enemies. With a hint of disdain, she warned Long against targeting women in his retaliation, as it was dishonorable and beneath the dignity of the Jun family. Long's angry glare doesn't deter him from pointing out the consequences of Long's actions, which have caused his reputation to decline over the years. Tensions escalate as their exchange highlights a deeper rift between the clans, punctuated by lingering animosity and unspoken challenges. Two of Long's followers rushed at him, enraged by his disdain for the young dragon master. Still standing firm, he calmly said that such insults were common among them. The situation escalated further when someone quickly intervened, dealing a blow to one of the attackers and unleashing sharp issacles towards the dragoness. The attackers were quickly parried and landed back on Long's side. Janjin and Wanjin, acting on behalf of the Jun family, confronted Long, asserting their intolerance of such rude behavior.